Okay, so how do we arrive at these numbers? Well, you've probably already figured it out. With the exception of the fair coin, where we just quote unquote know that it's 50-50, we have to go out there and collect stuff called data. And I've given you a very broad kind of explanation here, information that is collected. And this could be any kind of information. For the purposes of our class, we kind of break it down a little bit. There's stuff called qualitative, which is also called attribute data. This is, for example, keeping track of how people pay for something. Do they pay with a check? Do they pay with cash? Do they pay with credit card? Those don't have numbers attached to them. It's an idea. You may have also encountered qualitative type data if you've ever taken a Likert scale survey. Do you agree with this? Are you neutral with respect to this? Do you strongly disagree with this? These are words. And even though some people attach numbers to them, you shouldn't, because you can't add, subtract, multiply, and divide words. Qualitative data is tricky, right? It's tricky because what do you do with it? And we'll talk more about this as we go forward in the next couple classes. The more interesting stuff, in my humble opinion, that we can do more with is the quantitative or numerical data. So when I say statistics deals mostly with this, that's what I'm talking about. But hang on a second. What is statistics really? Like, what is the subject of statistics? Let me see if I can explain. Okay, here we are on COCC's website, and I am going to look up something called the fact book. I'm going to try to spell it correctly. The fact book. This is something we used to print over the past few years, these little tiny little books that my buddy Ron would carry around. I'm going to go into the most recent one, the 2019 COCC fact book. I guess they haven't updated it for about a year. And I'm going to do a quick little search, and I'm going to look for age. Let's just see. There it is. That was actually quicker than I thought it would take. Average age of credit students, 25.6. And then we've got down here, this is actually kind of fun, the median age of credit students, 22. Now, some of you know how to calculate an average, and we're going to talk about this in great detail next class. But the idea of these numbers here, the average age and the median age of the credit students, and even below, male and female credit students, and even below that, the high school enrollment in college now, COCC is able to actually count how many total credit students we have in any given year. As a matter of fact, I would believe, yep, look at that right there. Total credit enrollment in 2017-2018. This is interesting. It's a 2019 fact book, but it's got the 17-18 school year. Whatever. Is 8,732. So that means that this number down here, this average age that we see, shrink this down a little bit. There we go. This average age that we see, this 25.6, COCC actually knows exactly what that average is, because they could simply take all the ages of all 8,732 of those students, add them up, and divide by 8,732. Piece of cake. This is an example, actually all these numbers, but in particular these two numbers right here, are examples of parameters. They are the measures of the entire population. And that's what statisticians are interested in. They're interested in knowing the actual parameters of a population. But the problem is, only in cases like this can you get the parameters. Most of the time you can't, because you'd have to be able to actually measure your entire population. And how often can you actually measure the entire population? And the answer is really not very often. I mean, there's a reason this class is called statistics and not parameters. A parameter is the measure of an entire population, but a statistic is a measure of a subset of that population. Now, why do we just do a subset? Well, we do subsets because it's easier to grab a subset than it is to grab the entire population. But you have to make an allowance for what's known as error. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a little survey that was published in the Bulletin a couple of years ago. And take a look at the title. 1 in 10 COCC students has felt disrespected on campus. 1 in 10, that's 10% of COCC students has felt disrespected on campus. Now, when I read this headline, it really caught me off guard, because I thought to myself, well, hell, 1 in 10 students. My class has, when we have in-person classes, between 30 and 40 students in it. So that tells me that in my class, there's like 3 or 4 students that feel disrespected, maybe more. But then I started reading it. I'll scroll down here and read some of this with you. In the survey administered by the college's diversity committee via email, that's the first thing that pricked up my ears, students were asked how inclusive they thought COCC was and about any disrespectful or threatening behavior. Most reported feeling safe and comfortable, which makes sense, because if 1 in 10 feel threatened, that means the other 9 out of 10, I'm assuming, don't. And, this gets into a lot of percentages. 16% reported having observed or been made aware of conduct directed toward others that created an offensive or hostile learning environment. This is terrible. And then this right here, that's what got my real attention. The survey was given in the spring of 2014, this has been a while now, to students on all 4 campuses. About 9% of students responded. 9% of students responded. Now that's not mentioned up here. This headline says 1 in 10 COCC students. But that's not right, because when you read that, that sounds like a parameter to me. When I read that, I read 10% of all COCC students feels disrespected, and I call that a parameter. But what this really is it's a statistic. In the sample they did, which was about 9% of the students, which is going to be a few hundred people. Remember the number we looked up in the fact book earlier? About 8,700 students? Well, about 9% of roughly that number were surveyed. So that's about, let's make the math easy and make it 10%. 10% of about 9,000 is about 900. So they asked 900. That means they didn't ask everybody. So that headline should not say 10% of COCC students has felt disrespected. 10% of those who responded to a survey have felt disrespected. And I don't want to get too far ahead here. Because now we're going to start towing the line between Math 243 and Math 244. We'll mention it again here in a second. But you got to be careful. A headline like this makes it sound like a parameter when it's actually a statistic.